you ready?
I'm ready. Are we ready to start?
We are ready.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of CITE's Midwest USA chapter, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm Stan Hirschnow, and I'm the current president of this chapter. And as many of you know, CITE is committed to providing continual learning and development opportunities to its membership. And at the chapter level, we see this as one of our most important responsibilities as well. With a region that stretches over 5 states, we find that webinars and other online offerings are an effective way to reach our broad audience. A bit about the format for today's session. We've developed a series of questions that we believe will spark some great dialogue and provide insight that will be of value to all of us. We do have everyone on mute to control any background noise. However, throughout this session, please feel free to use the Q&A box to submit a question. And then finally, before I turn it over to Jim Adams, our chapter's Vice President of Education, to introduce today's session and our experienced panel, I wanted to extend a special thank you to our sponsors for today's webinar, IHG and Connect DMC. We truly value your support of the chapter, and we look forward to hearing more about your respective organizations during our sponsor breaks later in the session.
Stan, I'm going to interrupt for a second, please. I think we're having some audio issues. I just want to double check.
Can you ask somebody to text you if they can hear Stan?
All right. Can everybody, I unmuted these participants. Can you all hear us?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I apologize, Stan. We can go now.
That's fine. Yeah. Again, thanks for all for joining us today. Jim, I'll turn it over to you, so take it away.
Great. CITE Midwest is happy to have some great leaders in our industry today. They're going to help us all get some education on the relationship between DMC and clients. We've got a trilogy going on. Last month we talked with hoteliers. Next month we're talking with airlines and cruise lines. But today the DMC, which is probably one of our biggest interfaces in our careers, we're going to cover several parts. Part 1 is going to focus on the RFP process. Then Part 2 is going to be about ROI to us and to the DMC. And then we're going to wrap up with creativity through an open forum. And we're going to hear from our distinguished guest speakers, who I now have the privilege of introducing. Our first presenter, Kevin Funk, is the Director of Business Development for RMC. And we have all of their details on their work background, but he's been in the hotel and resort management. He's worked for Marriott, Walt Disney World, Westin, Fiesta Americana, Live, Aqua Hotels and Resorts. He's a CITE Minnesota board member, where he's fortunate enough to share a vision with some of the industry's thought leaders. And he was a former director of sales for Snowmass Village Resort Association. But he's thrilled now to again share his passion for the mountains and other RMC destinations to create memorable experiences with authentic local culture. Some unique things about him is he has a unique peer perspective in our industry, having been in the hotel client and DMC sides. During his time at Disney, he booked the single largest program in Disney history. The VW New Beetle launch worth $10 million in 1998. That's like $485 million in today's dollars. So I'm sure you're still living off your commission check, and congratulations to you. That's a huge accomplishment. His mom says he's a winner, and I'm not going to fight with his mom. And you all should not fight with him, because he's a 4th-degree black belt and is a certified instructor in Songnam Taekwondo. So while I might correct our other 2 industry associates, I know I won't. I would never dream of that with Kevin. Next, we have Lori Ribstein, who's Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Destination Services Corporation. She has an incredible background and is more than willing to travel to pursue her passion in our profession. She joined DSC in 2015 as Vice President of Sales and Marketing. After 25 years of being on the hotel side as a regional vice president for Ritz-Carlton in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So she's responsible for strategic sales and marketing leadership for DSC and its 7 destinations. Her role reflects the importance of DMC client relationships, and brand positioning, and their growing footprint in the western United States. She spent the last 4 years living in Dubai, which I'm sure was an experience we could have a separate webinar on. And she and her family are back in Vail Valley, which she just reminded us is a sunny, beautiful 80 degrees, because the rest of the centers are where it's 90. And it's just further shown her how critical it is for the DMC to embrace the local communities. Excuse me. Finally, Vic Laxon, Vice President, General Manager of Hello, Florida. Vic spent 10 years selling drugs and alcohol. Then he graduated from for companies like Johnson & Johnson and Brown-Forman. He then started his DMC career in 1995 as the Director of Sales with a company his family owned called Premier Convention Services. In 1999, he and 3 other business partners purchased Premier, and he served as the president until the company was purchased by Hello, Florida Destination Management in 2005. He currently serves as the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Hello's Orlando office. He's got an extremely low tolerance of routine, and that's why he loves his job in the DMC business, because every day is creatively different from the one before. So on behalf of Site Midwest and our board, I want to thank each of you for taking the time and all the work that you've done to help us with this seminar. We really appreciate it. And now we'll get into the first part, which is the RFP, development and delivery, creating the perfect RFP. So we talked with the hoteliers, and we know as DMCs, sometimes you get a RFP on a napkin. That would typically be for me. And then sometimes you get an RFP that's been blessed by lawyers and everybody but God. That would typically come from Darcy, our purchasing director on my right side. So keep in mind you're talking to both perspectives in our audience. And I'd like to start with the contract. Kevin, can you address how much lead time DMCs prefer from planners and what your standard response time is?
Sure. I mean, the more the better, obviously. It depends on the scope of the project and your goal, and are you bidding on the business, have you won it, and your budget. You know, that's important because we want to know where you're coming from, not where you fit, but where you belong. And the general idea is if you don't need pricing, you just need ideas, you need probably 2 days. If you're trying to win in full pricing and specs and that type of thing, you're in the 1.5 to 2 weeks. You know, if it's well defined and to have an accurate discovery process, and really trying to win the business. We ask that because we want to be creative. That's the short answer to a long question.
Okay. Any other panelists want to project on that?
Yeah, this is Vic. One of the things that we look for and try to encourage our planners is the understanding of seasonality, especially when we're talking about off-property venues. Orlando, specifically as a market, and I see it in our other markets as well, is they're in the tight windows. Our venues are getting booked further and further out, which I know that swings from economy to economy. But there is a growing need to look further out now, especially in these markets that get a lot of play, to make sure you're securing the venues that are really a good fit for you. So I think in your initial consultation, you want to find out how tight the market is. It's not just the turnaround time, it's the need to drive the thought process sooner.
Boy, Vic, you just hit on a hot button with our hoteliers. You know, they went from, we have 3,000 rooms for you 8 weeks out, to we're ready to book in 2019. So you're facing the same kind of pressures?
We are, yes.
Okay. Lori, what are some of the tricks for meeting planners to help expedite the process?
Well, probably first is less RFPs on cocktail napkins and maybe more of them built out. No, seriously though, one of the interesting things I've seen in this past year of being on the DMC side versus the hotels is when a hotel gets an RFP, it is fairly detailed out. And when we're getting RFPs on the DMC side, more often than not, it really is just check a few things, we're looking for an off-site. And so the more information, I'd rather have too much information that I've got to weed through to make certain that we're getting the right proposal out the first time. The other, and I know we'll speak to it later on technology, sometimes to make certain that we get it right the first time and we really hit on what are you trying to accomplish with this meeting? What is the end result that you're looking for? That's often a conversation. That's not something that can be put in an RFP. So that ability, as Kevin mentioned, that discovery call really will, in the end, help expedite the process, even though it does seem like it's going to take more time up front.
To the panel, what percentage of your planners actually send a list of past activities and venues that they've done, even though they're not near destination, to give you an idea what they're looking for?
10.
I was about ready to say 15. So, yeah, and that's been a shift because it is very customized. You know, you're not comparing apples to apples when you're looking at a DMC for what you did in previous years. But having that historical information in the RFP, just like it's invaluable information from a hotel perspective as a vendor partner, the same holds true for the DMC side.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Yeah, to add to that, you're absolutely right, Lori. And to add to that, it's that what are you trying to accomplish your objective and what have you done in the past? Because that tells us, you know, you don't always know your budget. You know, budget's important not because we want to see how much we can milk out of you, because we as DMCs can develop and deliver anything. It's like in the racing they call it speed's expensive, how fast you want to go. If you want to go really fast, it might be expensive, but if you're looking to, you know, do a Harry Potter theme and you want the actors from Harry Potter, we'll get them there. It's just going to be expensive. How much of what kind of experience do you want us to deliver is going to help us understand. So we're not using the shotgun approach. We're laser focused on helping you accomplish your goals and objectives of your client.
Great.
I think probably the third for me is also that transparency and the partnership between the DMC and the planner. And Kevin mentioned it earlier about being really transparent where you are in the process, because not every planner needs full pricing, confirmation of availability of venues, et cetera. Really, you are just looking for high level, I need some ideas that are going to help me pitch the destination to my client because Vail's on the short list, for example. If we know that, that allows us more time on those proposals that really are at that time in the planning process where they do need the full details. You're building out a budget, you want to take something to your end user stakeholders that really does paint the full picture of the program, and knowing the difference in that up front allows us to meet the needs of all of our clients.
Great. So, Kevin, how are you all structured internally? Is your sales team separate from your operations team, or do you have account managers that handle all aspects of a program, serving as a single point of contact for clients like us?
Sure, we're separate. So we have really two levels. So people like me are business development, or more referred to as national sales, where I'm responsible for all 13 destinations and having those relationships. And so I quote unquote own the account, and the local we call them organic salespeople and organic experts, meaning they're from those areas that live in their destinations. They're the sales, and then we have the same with operations that are local as well.
Okay. Vic, are you set up the same way at Hello Florida?
No, we started a team concept even before I arrived at Hello Florida. So we have a team that consists of a salesperson, an operations manager, and a product development person. And what we find value in that for us is we have 3 people that are very familiar with every nuance of a client's program. So if a client calls in and they can't access one of those, one of the 2, they can finally, usually find the 3rd person. And we've also found it as internally for us, selfishly, it's a great way for us to grow talent, because the sales coordinators and the operations managers work so closely with the sales team, they get to really experience the next level up, and we're able to grow people faster through that process.
I want to take just a moment to thank all of you panelists. As a business owner, I've already heard 3 things that don't specifically have to do with travel purchasing, but that you have to do with making your business better, that I can apply to our business. So thanks for being open and sharing that with us. This is great feedback. So now we want to talk about creating the perfect RFP, the essential components of any initial proposal request. Vic, what are the necessary elements required to produce a strong RFP?
You know, the details are certainly, you know, from soup to nuts where you want to start and where you want to end your meeting, but I put some more nuances in here that I think help people think maybe a little bit outside the box. You know, once you go through the we need meet and greet, we need an all property, is to really point out what the unique aspects are of your program. I think too often we think about the whole picture and don't really boil it down to the attendee. So the more we understand what the true intent of the impact on the attendee, if they're driving a corporate message or this is really just to show wow for the company, understanding that background into each piece of what we're going to do really helps us develop an RFP. And then we've already touched on this a couple times, but I think it bears repeating, is the communication of the history, where it worked and where it didn't work in the past. And then one thing that I always find really hard to train salespeople on, and quite often we get pushback from planners, is to really nail down a budget. And I think there's hesitation sometimes in giving people a budget because they think they will limit our options. We train really hard in our office to, once we understand that budget, then to boil it down even further from there and say, all right, if you have $30,000 to spend on an off-property venue, how much do you want to spend on the food? How much do you want to spend on the bar? You know, how much do you want to spend on the entertainment, so that we can find the right mix and the right venue to speak to my first point, which is how do we really make this work for your attendee focus?
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, Lori here, and Vic really hit on the attendee experience, but the other that's helpful is we start planning out, you know, within your budget, what are the critical elements to ensure success of the program. You know, what would also be great is taking the RFP up a level. And when you start thinking about your business stakeholder, that at the end of the day is going to have to justify the ROI for this incentive trip, client event, et cetera. You know, many of us on the phone, we all survived the last economic downturn, and I was fortunate enough to work in the luxury hotel space at that time. So we know that no one does meetings for fluff anymore. There has to be a business objective and an outcome that they want as a result of doing this event. And if we can know that, we can really partner with you to make certain that we're going to hit that ROI, that at the end of the day, you've got to go back and go home and say, you know what, our goal for this was to engage our top performers and make them more loyal to staying with us, or our clients being more loyal to us and generating more revenue. Then we can help build a program that's going to support those business objectives.
Great. So, Kevin, what information is the most beneficial for you when sourcing venues and suppliers for potential client or program?
You know, it kind of leads into what we just talked about as well, but I'll repeat part, because the objective, the goals, and again, that budget, because we all deliver experiences that are, some can be in a budget, some can be elaborate, and need to understand that so that we're not overwhelming you with this proposal that's 80 pages long when it could be 10, because it's laser focused. And again, your desired experience, your history, what worked well in the past and what didn't, and again, focus, not a shotgun effect, hoping that something will stick. Because that's a lot of times when we're left with that, we ask questions like, you know, I don't know that, you know, I don't know that. But then the nature of the beast is that for like the incentive market especially, you know, you have 500 yahoos like me calling you every day. So you don't pick up the phone that much. So all I communicate with you is through this proposal. If we have that initial conversation, that really makes you more efficient. And if I'm correct, your side of the business also is all billable hours, and that all goes into the profit. You want to keep as lean and as mean, as efficient as possible. So together, if we communicate, I guess it all boils down to communicate. It's like a marriage. All the problems start when you don't communicate, right? So so it's the same process. So open communication, think of us as a trusted advisor, not a salesperson, to help you, guide you down that path, to combine our expertise with your expertise and client knowledge and product knowledge to get to that end result. So as far as information, it's hard to narrow it, but those are a few top ones.
And if I've come to you in the past and you've had me go to a barn that did a great symphony in the symphony in the barnyard kind of thing with a kind of a twist, and that supplier's gotten a little bit weak that did that, or it changed hands and it's just not the same support. How do you steer clients off of doing what they've done before because it was great before, but it might not be so great now, but they come to you pretty soon?
Same thing, be honest with them. Say I'm sorry if I'm interrupting anybody, but you're coming to us because you want us to be the local destination experts. Allow us to be that and guide you down that line and say, yeah, they were great that when you were there, not so much anymore. You know, if you're trying to accomplish a similar experience, let's talk through that and come up with some other suggestions. I think that's valuable open honesty. Okay, great. Lori, what information is most often omitted by meeting planners that have hindered the process for you?
You know, we're starting to see, this is a great question. Thank you for asking it. We have 2 live examples that came up just this week. Is the demand for hotels is increasing, so are food and beverage minimums at the hotel. And so if you've already contracted and committed to a food and beverage minimum, that means you need to stay at the hotel more often than maybe you have in the past. That's great information. Sometimes we're getting the RFP that's the dream, the one I'm working on right now. For example, the client came to us and said, you know, we want to do on mountain one night, we want to do a ranch one night, and we want to do a village dine around one night. Sounds fantastic. It's a wonderful, great Vail program. Called the hotel, and the hotel's like, oh no, their food and beverage minimum means they've got to have 2 of their dinners on site. Well, that changes the program quite a bit, and you know, good for us that we picked up the phone and called our hotel partner to make certain we were aligned on the program development. But if we've already committed part of our budget through the hotel contracting process, that would be great information to have on the RFP, and very rarely do we see it.
Does that scare you a little bit about that particular client? Maybe they didn't even realize they'd tied up so much of their budget. Does that worry you a bit?
It does, and all my years in the hotel side, I see where that happens. You know, the making certain in the hotel contracting phase, what shows up in that minimum F&B sometimes is just one big number, and we as partners don't often do a great job explaining that, you know what, to hit this, that means breakfast every morning and 2 evening events in the hotel. For us on the DMC side, we love partnering with our hotels, and it gives me a great ballroom that I can create an experience in. Fantastic, I'll bring the ranch to you. But it's just good to know it up front, so we're not wasting planners' time presenting solutions to them that at the end of the day don't work because of what's already been committed.
Great, thank you. Panelists, anything else before we have a word from our sponsor? Okay, well now a word from our sponsor for this webinar. One of them, Danielle Duarte, Sales Manager with Connect DMC, who has a brief presentation for us. I'm turning it over to Danielle.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have a few moments today to present our company, and not just our company, but our beautiful destination, the Dominican Republic.
Danielle, you should have control of the screen now.
Danielle, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Just
yes.
A little troubled.
So, do you want to change the slide, or do you want us to change the slide?
Are you having difficulty?
Yeah, I'm having difficulty. Sorry, it's not changing for me. You can go ahead and change to them. It's fine. All right, so just quickly to go over why the Dominican Republic. As a country, and more specifically the area of Punta Cana where Connect DMC has our head offices, we're currently experiencing over the past few years exponential growth and development in the area. which has really allowed us as a DMC to respond to many of the needs of our clients and their requests. One of these examples is the new highway system that connects Santo Domingo, our capital, to Punta Cana, and a brand new area of beaches along the Bay of Samaná. Another great point is the Dominican Republic being part of the second largest islands in the Caribbean. We have 7 international airports in the area. Our airlift is great, one of the best in the region. And according to our national statistics, our country is currently offering more than 69,000 hotel rooms. This number continues to grow, and many of our hotel partners are really stepping up with renovated state-of-the-art venues and meeting spaces. We're a dynamic destination. We have a large catalog of activities, and there's what has helped us a lot as a DMC as well is that as a country, we're following some trends for culturally and ecologically rich experiences. Our next slide shows some of our venues that we have available here in the area. These are just a few. In the past 3 to 4 years, our selection of venues off-site have really grown in the Punta Cana area. One of the top center photos is Pearl Beach Club. This is a venue that's relatively new, the past year or so, has the capacity for large events and concerts. The internationally famous Coco Bongo is now in the area with its origins in Mexico. We have unique venues. The Imagine Cave and Disco, La Cana Clubhouse, which is more exclusive and was designed by the late Oscar de la Renta. The Palapa at Eden Rock, often recognized as the best culinary experience in Punta Cana. And the list goes on with exclusive venues such as Barishnikov's private villa. On the next slide, I'd like to highlight some of our hotels that are coming in. As the country continues to develop, our hotel partners are bringing in new product. We have the Secrets Cap Cana opening November 2016, boasting 455 luxury guest rooms, 7 restaurants, infinity pools, and it's located in the exclusive area of Cap Cana, about a 5 to 10 minute transfer from the Punta Cana airport. And our capital, the Intercontinental Santo Domingo, is scheduled to open September 2016. It's centrally located in downtown, 227 luxury tech advanced rooms, and again, it's located in one of the most important areas of the city. Our next slide shows a little bit of our activities in the area as a DMC, and a DMC exclusively working with groups. We understand the importance of offering a wide range of activities to add to any program, and we work with our suppliers very closely to tailor-make these activities as well. Our activities range from adrenaline activities, city tours, to relaxation, and again, culturally rich moments that can make or break an event. So we really work hard to find the best products in the area. And again, this is just a little bit of information of what's trending, what's happening here in the Dominican Republic. We have Altos de Chavon, which is a Roman replica of a village, a great venue. It's got a huge amphitheater, and we've been able to do some exciting events there and combine it with some of our tours. Dos Haitises and Cayo Levantado, Pico Duarte, which is the highest mountain in the Caribbean. Dos Haitises is an eco-national park where, thanks to the new highway, we're able to take our groups further and further into some great areas. Santo Domingo, our capital, has been recognized as a UNESCO Heritage Site. One of our partner hotels, Paradisus Palmarial, and their new winery, Eden Rock at Cap Cana, which is a Relais Chateau. And again, what's happening, we have our exclusive tours, custom-built tours. We are noticing a lot of requests coming in for team buildings, and team buildings with a purpose with CSR elements combined. We have some exciting new VIP services in the area, such as expedited services through the airports. The World Baseball Classic is scheduled for March 2017, and again, another hotel coming in the Beaches area, scheduled for 2018. Most importantly, in our next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about why Connect DMC. If you can change the slide for me, sorry. So at Connect DMC, we specialize solely in events, meetings, and incentives. This is important to us. It allows our planners to really be keyed in to what our clients need. We understand that as a DMC, we have to be your extension here in the destination. We have to have clear communication, and really we work hard to try and understand what each of our clients needs and to respond quickly, effectively, and with a focused response, not to waste time, both on our RFPs and also in site inspection planning, which we take very seriously. We understand that our guests and our clients need to accomplish the most with their time and see the most. Our fully automated computer system allows us to really respond quickly. We promise our initial response to RFPs within 24 hours, and then again, we work on more detailed proposals. Will take us anywhere from a few days to a week or so to get back with our creative side. We have an events team that's dedicated to support our planners to produce these types of presentations and really work to create creative solutions. So again, thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Site Midwest. Relationships really do matter to Connect DMC, and we know communication is the key. So we hope to receive you all here in Punta Cana very soon.
Well, thank you, Danielle, and Connect DMC for your continued support. We really appreciate it from Site Midwest. Thank you very much. Now, part 2, ROI, the RFP revision and contract. So ROI, RFP revision. Do your due diligence up front. Some of the pitfalls meeting planners sourcing before they're ready to buy. Kevin, what's a pitfall for me sourcing before I'm ready to buy?
Sure. You know, do they own the business or is it out to bid? That's good to know. And then the buying process, decision-making process and timeline. And again, we know that sometimes it's a best guess, but it gives us an idea so that when we're reaching out to different venues, we know which ones are hot and which ones we are more lenient for holding longer, so that'll help you as well. Again, all trying to keep you in line with being effective and efficient and delivering that well. So I think that and the budget are, you know, they just don't know, or, you know, demographics they don't know, and so how do you, you know, we're throwing darts at a dartboard and trying to figure out what'll stick instead of really getting into a good discovery call.
Okay. Lori, how do DMCs compete to help meeting and incentive planners appear special?
Well, you know, as you said in the introduction, Kevin with RMC and myself with DSC, we compete all the time. We share similar markets, and it's great to compete. We also collaborate a lot on some larger programs where a client might make the decision, but actually working with 2 DMCs is the best thing for them based on the strengths of each. You know, I'm a fan of the free market, and I believe that when we compete, at the end of the day, the planner wins, regardless of what choice they go with. Usually pricing is fairly similar. It's which DMC is going to be the best one for your needs, what is fit. And we know, just like in life everywhere, every time you compete, you're raising your game a little bit, and that's good for our meeting planners.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Laura just saying, just saying qualifying, asking the right questions, and, you know, not where you fit but where you belong. I think those are all keys that we all ask to make sure that we're on the right, and that makes us compete with each other. And again, it's who is asking the right questions and developing who has the bandwidth to handle this the best probably wins the business instead of just where you fit. Would you say, Lori? Same thing, right? It's where it comes down to.
Absolutely, and I love competing against you, Kevin.
Right.
You know, if it's anything like our business, there's plenty of business for everybody. It's just finding the niche and right partners. So how do you identify and handle potential logistics problems from client requests? Example, group size versus venue selection. I've got a client, and I swear, if he knows that 200 people's max, he's going to pick it when he's got a group of 250. If he only had 200, he wouldn't pick it. He'd pick one that was only room for one set. We're all rolling our eyes in the room because we know I'm telling the truth. So how do you handle those kind of clients? This guy thinks that when people can't move, it means they're happy. So how do you try to talk clients like that into a little bit of realism? Kevin?
Yeah, it's great because it does happen a lot. I think that gets back to what do you want to achieve? Tell me what was great about your last report. Why do you think it was great? Well, it was great because people were crowded. Well, why do you think that's great? And again, if you have a report and you're asking it the right way, it's not offensive, right? You're saying, gosh, that's interesting. That in a unique perspective, you feel that the people on top of each other is the way to go. Tell me why that is. And then that leads insight. So I'm asking because I want to learn more about what makes you tick and what makes your people tick. And then say, well, gosh, is that, then you have to have, and trust to your gut. Again, they're calling you as the expert to say, gosh, that experience could be better if you were to have a little bit more room. Here's why. It all comes down to the why, right? Why are you doing it? Why do you want to put people on top of each other? If it's a good reason, you know what? Great, didn't think about that. Let's do it. Otherwise, it's one of those, gosh, it's a candid conversation. Sometimes tough, but not if you phrase it right.
Okay. Yeah.
This is. Okay.
No, go ahead.
This is Vic. The only thing I would add to that, and I think that was a great answer, one of the things we've really started focusing on, and thank heavens for the technology that we have today. A lot of this stuff can be mapped out, and visually you can show people just what it looks like to have that many people occupy space. And when you get down to cutting out the buffets and now the entertainment that was a 5-piece band is a drummer that's stuck in a corner because that's the only space you can occupy. I think with technology today, you can really clearly illustrate, the downside of putting too many people in a space. And that's true for transportation as well. When they want 1,000 people to leave a curb designed for 2 motor coaches, and you tell them, the loading pace and that you're going to have with that experience is, we're just going to take 3 hours to clear the curb. So it's with technology where you can show, this is where the vehicle stage and this is where the group lines up, and the GM and the hotels can be screaming at me because people are standing in the lobby. Yeah, it's that all those conversations with today's technology make it a lot easier.
Yeah, Vic hit on transportation, and I think that's one of the most logistical components of our job and some of the misinformation that's out there. And that's, being honest up front, what transfer time really looks like. Websites can make something seem like it is in the back door, and for everyone who's flown into Denver International Airport knows, with the exception of the West End, there's not a lot right next door. And really having those honest conversations up front that if you're going to fly everyone in the morning, start your meetings in the afternoon, let's talk about what those transfer times really mean.
I love hearing that because that's one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy. When I'm doing a site inspection and we're doing a site inspection at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of Friday night at 7.
Yep.
When it backs up for 20 miles. Contracts, inspired solutions that provide a bang for the buck. Lori, I'd like you to start with this. The main sources of revenue for DMCs that planners can be aware of to assist in negotiations. We actually want our partners to make money so you're there the next time we need you. What can you tell me so in our planning and contract, we both feel like we've had success working with each other?
Well, thank you for asking that. We love hearing that. One of the biggest learning curves for me as I joined the DMC world coming from the hotel side is really the products that we sell as part of the overall experience versus designing and creating an event. From a product standpoint, whether that's, group tickets to Disney World in Orlando or ski passes and lessons up here in the mountains, those products and pricing models, they are what they are, and they're not dictated by us. They're, set by our partners. Really the opportunity and where we excel and have the most fun and really can create the high impact for our meeting planners is on the events, whether it's the opening reception that you're doing on site at your host hotel or that once-in-a-lifetime wow event that you're doing on your final night. That's really becomes the heart and soul for us.
Okay. What additional costs are included in contracts outside of what's presented in the initial RFP that we should keep in mind during our preliminary budgeting? I give you a perfect example My first program I did before I had a team working with me, I forgot to include the service contract on most of our food and beverage programs, and so I pretty much worked for free on my first program. What other kind of cost are there that we should be aware of in today's market?
I'll say I have yet to see a final bill where transportation is less than what it was in the RFP and contract. You know, as much as we can do with transparency, and I would be asking for it for every DMC, you know, great, what if we can fill the motor coach, what does that look like? But what does the high-end, you know, town car look like for my VIPs? But then when we start budgeting for it, often we see its best case scenario. In reality, you know, you do a meeting in San Francisco and you've budgeted that everyone's flying into San Francisco, and lo and behold, someone's going into San Jose and someone's going into Oakland, and you thought you'd have 10 VIPs that wanted private transportation, but you've got 20. That's reality. Everyone who's planned a meeting knows the 48 hours before arrival that manifest changes multiple times. And with that gets hidden costs. And so, you know, a good rule of thumb is add yourself some contingency in the initial budget around transportation.
That's great feedback. Anybody else on our panel?
I think that was well said. That's the kicker, is transportation, because there's so many variables.
Okay. The changing concessions trend. How DMCs combat the ever-shrinking meeting planner budgets. Kevin, what are the standard options you typically offer your clients on concessions?
You know, that's a great question, and there are no standard ones because it's all depending on what's important to them. Because it's same with the hotel side. I'll bring it back to that. Is, well, here's our concessions. Well, you haven't even asked me any questions yet. How do you know, you might be throwing all this stuff out there they don't either care about or it's not important in their budget. And so you're wasting their time and effort when you could be focused on what's important to them in their budget, what concessions are important to them, and then why. You know, say, because our job is what? To make you look great to your client, right? So if you're communicating to, hey, I know this client's a sticky wicket on this part of the budget, we have to make sure that's great. Okay, great, or this concession has to be there. I don't know what it has to do, but it has to be there. Okay, great, so let's massage the budget to make sure that works and have other concessions as well to know that you're stepping up to the table as well and doing your job about, you know, quote unquote, beating us up without beating us up, because it's a communication. So then it's no longer a bargaining, it's negotiation. You know, there's a big difference. And I think your last, matter of fact, on your hotel call, they did a great job explaining the difference between two of them. You know, bargaining on price is a lot different than negotiating the terms and what goes into the contract. So, gosh, you know, sometimes you can get, you know, it's really rare on our side of the business, but to sign and deposit to get 2,000 rates from vendors in 2017, sometimes, but even that's tough now because, you know, a bike, I asked my on-the-ground people the same question, and they said, you know, it's hard to get a good deal from a guy that owns all the bikes that lives in a trailer to get a good deal for you just because your son is 6 months. He doesn't care when he gets the money, you know. So it's a good point. So, yeah.
That's really true.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey on the DMC side. We work with so many small businesses. You know, in 25 years in the hotels, I had an amazing revenue management team where I could sit down with my revenue leaders and say, okay, Sunday through Tuesday pattern versus the Thursday through Saturday in the resorts, and let's talk about what that means for concessions. To Kevin's point, you're working with the guy that owns all the bikes and he lives in a trailer. He doesn't, it's not in his business model to say his Tuesday demand is really different than his Saturday weekend demand, and therefore let's talk about pricing strategy and concessions. It's just a different business model as you start working with small companies, and so it is really getting creative on what's important to the client.
And have any of you seen any new concessions that you've explored or tried or got your partners to, go ahead.
One of the things we're doing here in Orlando, looking at, and in our other offices as well, is looking at ways to tie our CSR projects into concessions. So one of the recent examples that we've been doing for the past 2 years is putting returning a certain portion of our attraction ticket sales to a local school charity. And we're getting good buy-in from that because it's as you participate in that business with us, and it's helping the local community.
That's great.
And it's on us as the DMC partners, going to what Kevin said about why it's so critical to live local. We are constantly reassessing our partners, not just for what's hot and on trend and still meets our service standards, but also what's falling in at different price points and what does their competitive model look like. We have an entire team in each one of our offices that they are just with the partners constantly and reassessing for who is the best rafting company for this client and who's the best rafting company for another client. And they may be different, and that's good.
Are there any concessions you try to steer away from at all cost?
Yeah, well, in general, offering it before you know the value and scope of the program. Again, if you try to do that and to get their attention to offer concessions before you've had that discovery call and really dig in, we're all shooting each other in the foot because it doesn't accomplish any goals. It just lowers the value and scope of the program.
I'm going to throw you off for a curve just because I don't want to put this into creativity and tricks, and I realize that it needs to be asked. I just was on an interesting family trip, and I was in Munich, and I was in the south of France by Nice, and then one of the people we were in Nice went up to Normandy and was at the church. We had three terrorist incidents in a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of you seeing an increase, and you're all American-based, are any of you seeing an increase in the terrorist language for force majeure, or are you being addressed the terrorist actions around the world as if it happens in Nice, we're not coming to Orlando, or any of you seen anything like that? And I apologize.
It's Lori here. It's Lori. I'll jump in. After 4 years living in the Middle East, as you said, I'm really excited that what I have to worry about for my clients today is the water levels on our local rivers. But it's still coming up, and having spent that time overseas and overseeing Europe and Middle East, and this is probably more of a hotel answer than a DMC, is the language in most of the contracts as it relates to terrorism says, and making it impossible to travel. So post 9/11, when all the airports were closed. Istanbul, when they closed the airport for all of 36 hours. It's impossible to travel. However, it gets a lot looser on what is terrorism, making it impossible to travel, and probably my advice would be, often the hotel contract is signed first. When you're signing major contracts, whether it be a DMC or an airline partner or anything else, does the language align? So have you covered all those bases, because you might think you're good in one area and not the other?
That's a great point.
Very good. Yeah, and again, Laura and I both have hotel backgrounds, so it's a little easier to talk there, but I imagine it's the same as it gets into very specific language in force majeure as, where does the terrorism happen? And it's usually in the local, because I handled Mexico for a long time on my previous job, and it was, okay, is terrorism in the Middle East can affect Mexico? It has to be in the area, I guess is one of the words, but I mean, there's more specific language, but it doesn't just say terrorism in general, because it doesn't affect you in Mexico when it's in Europe, quote unquote. So it's one of those, I think she's right, work through the hotel contract and align that language, because they're going to pay, I know it's a huge sticking point for hotels. If you've gotten through with them, why not share that language and understand it together, get to the right solution. Great.
Well, thank you all. And now we're going to take a quick break because we hear from our final sponsor for this webinar, the IHG Intercontinental Hotels Group. We have a short video to play for them. Here we go. Well, thank you, IHG, for your support. And now we're going to be to part 3, creativity, the tricks, and the tips. So, Vic, under creativity, what are some of the tricks and the tips that create win-win scenarios for DMCs and planners?
One of our favorite challenges is coming up with something that's unique and different per meeting. And the biggest, easiest way to do that is to really get inside the head, again, of the attendee and understand what the mission critical is for the meeting that's going to happen, what the outlying experience is for the attendees, and then also getting that historical model in place to understand what has worked well and what hasn't worked well in the past. It really allows the DMC to focus, the budgets that our clients give us in the right direction from an entertainment standpoint. So often we go in with these perimeter to core concepts when the reality is some really neat center-of-the-room entertainment will drive their meeting success for a gala or whatever that they're trying to accomplish. So from a creativity standpoint, the more the client allows us to get inside the head of the attendee and understand the mission of the corporate objective or the association objective in a meeting, really allows us to create something that we're going to be happy to deliver and that the attendees are going to be happy to receive.
Super. Anybody else something to add for that?
Kevin, where our destinations are those bucket list destinations, so ours are all about creating those authentic local experiences. That seems to be a huge hot button in the incentive market. They don't want to go to, Jackson and not have true Jack. They want to feel like a local. That's what they want. So, again, creativity and teamwork is your team, and the likes and dislikes, and make sure you're spending time hitting the bullseye, like Vic said, and understand, if you have photos of the past and say, hey, this was great, well, understand what do you mean by great? What's your vision of great? And what do you want people to say before, during, and after the event, ideally? I want this, okay, great. And are you on the same page with the budget? Because that, again, kind of defines where you want to go with this.
You're right. Lori, how do you play to the strengths of your team, products and services, and your destinations?
One, it all starts with hiring. And that holds true not just for DMCs, but this entire industry. And do you hire for specific skills, or do you hire for natural raw talent, and for us, passion for the destinations we serve? We are in some really unique destinations and love the people that support in those offices because they live and breathe, as Kevin just said, Jackson Hole. And that's really critical in the talent mix, and we're only as good as the people we have. I don't have 4 walls in a hotel anymore. I don't have a product. I have amazing people. And so that becomes the most critical piece. And every time we're hiring, how are we balancing the strengths we already have? So if I've got heavy logistics experts in one office, I'm really going to be looking for someone that's strong on creativity.
Great way to put it. And I worked for Disney for years and was friends with one of the recruiters. I'm like, how the hell do you process all these people to deal with this place? You have 55,000 people in one place. And they said, well, we hire on passion and creativity. They go, what do you mean? They said, I see the resume. I asked them one question. Tell me something funny that happened to you today. And that's the question she asked, and that determines if they get hired, because they can think on their feet, they're articulate, and they have a good sense of humor. And so it's one of those things, just like Lori said, the right people are so difficult to hire anywhere, and certainly with DMCs, because not everyone understands before they do it. Right, Lori? Well, this is what I thought. Either the right or good or bad. Well, you could go each way, right?
Fortunately good, but yes, definitely not what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So how are DMCs getting creative to compete against the ever-evolving information technology resources? Some of the very technology issues that we worked with and we were amazed by in the beginning are now trying to put us out of work. So how are you all dealing with that? Kevin?
You mean like CVET and EVID? Yeah, where everyone's become a commodity now, and that's unfortunate. I think where it dives into is you really have to look at your partners and understand what's their longevities, what resources they have at their disposal, and who is on your team. You know, how long they've been in business, what endorsements do they have, and boils down to, kind of this business even more than ever, is relationships and who do you trust as your advisor. You know, because, and I know Laura has the same kind of, Svek, I don't know you as well, but I know Laura has the same selling strategy as me. You know, we're trusted advisors, not salespeople. You know, we're not going to tell you, we're going to provide solutions, not just stuff that may work. And that's what has to happen because, again, you know, you guys all experience how many calls you get a day from people you don't want to talk to. I want to be the guy that you pick up the phone like, hey, he's going to add value to my conversation today. I'll answer that call. And no matter what it is, they have that value.
And Kevin spoke to this earlier. The nice thing about technology, it can work equally well for you as it can against you. And in our business, as long as we're giving our clients better information than they can get direct, then they're always going to come to us. 10 years ago, I was paranoid with the access to all the information that's out there today. And what I found is that people are going to go back to the trusted source because they want somebody that's got more than just a single venue experience, somebody that's got multi-venue experience is a much better person to talk to than any one venue can speak to. So as long as you're constantly being, you know, one-upping the people in your market and providing information, good information in a timely manner that's better than information they get somewhere else, they're still going to come back to you.
Hey, go ahead.
So it's embracing the technology, you know, and I think back, you know, when I worked with DMCs on the hotel side and the proprietary feel around the created concept and at the time themed events. Now, every time we create something new, it goes on our Flickr account. We share it out there with all of our planning partners. We hope and we see that our partners are on our Flickr account often for inspiration. We embrace it. And then we sit down as trusted partners and curate and design what works best for them and their business objectives. And that you, fortunately today, still can't get online.
So as an incentive house, we always get asked a couple questions. Why we use DMCs to get transportation? Why don't we book direct with the buses? And I always tell the story about when you come into a city and they're doing a citywide, they're going to operate for my DMC because you guys buy every day. If we come into your city and we're there once every 5 or 10 years, we're going to be the first person overlooked. I would think that you mentioned a couple of the online sources. I would think that the story is fairly similar for you DMCs explaining why they should use you directly as opposed to those online sources. You have people living there and you do the business every day. You're just not a blip, or how else do you handle that?
Our expertise, you know, you're paying us, or in any other avenues of your business as well, you're paying for expertise to anticipate and get out in front of the problems so they don't become your problems. And it's like me going into a city. I know Denver pretty well, but I sure as hell don't know as well as my local person. I never will. They live there, and they know, like, oh, no, you take this way to get to this park. Here's why. Hey, this is under construction. I would never know that. And that's a very, you know, obviously simple example, but they know how to get things done and to do it right, who to hire to get that done, and to deliver experience that we've promised and our reputation is based upon.
Super. Well, we're getting questions from some of our listeners, and I'm going to start with one that's come in. And any of our listeners that want to ask a question, you can send it right now to Susan, and we'll get you on or unmute, and you can talk. But our panelists, you did a great job, by the way. Thank you so much. One of our first questions was, how would you respond to a planner who wants to do everything on a cost-plus basis because that's what their client wants them to do, is everything on a cost-plus basis? And I'm talking about detail cost all the way down to the plates.
It's Lori here. I'll jump in because the pricing model and margins for a DMC was one of my learning curves. And we're actually seeing that request more often. So it's something that we're setting models for. What it does mean is there's going to be a management fee line item. Either can be broken down by product or service that you're asking for, or holistically, that is a percentage of the cost. And, you know, so then it's, are you comfortable as a meeting planner speaking to your end stakeholder about that management fee and the value that that brings to the overall coordination, design, planning, and finally execution of the program?
Great.
Well said.
And one other question about current events in our industry is we see right now that many of our clients will come to us and not tell us that they're going out for a bid process, or they'll have an administrative aide go back after we've done a proposal and start to check prices, sometimes going to the very suppliers we've looked at. This seems to be a relatively new phenomenon. I mean, it's happened over the years, but it seems to happen quite more often now. What do you do to protect your third-party clients or let them know that they're being shopped when clearly they haven't been told that early in the process?
Yeah, that's a tough one because you want to respect everyone's either anonymity or proprietorship. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. But you also have to respect the relationship you have with the people that are being out to bid, and it's maybe asking that question instead of telling them. Say, you know, this sounds familiar. You out to bid without really saying or not. It's a tough one because you know, for me, integrity is everything. I don't have anything else. Integrity is it, and so it's kind of case by case basis where what's your relationship and what has been told you ahead that is either proprietary or not, and to try to help them in a way. Because I don't know, like I'd love to hear other, you know, Vic and Laura, please chime in there because it's a tough nut.
So I see it as being all part of the communication chain. For us, if somebody's asking me for a venue for 500 people on a certain date in Orlando, and I source that venue, and the venue says it's already on hold for a very similar group for those same specs, then I just relay that back to the client. And typically I would perceive that as somebody else looking at that same opportunity for a similar, or if not the same group. And also all of our vendors here in all of our markets, we challenge them as people come to them with either similar group dynamics. We don't ask them to violate their confidentiality with people that are reaching out to them, but if somebody's reaching out to them for a 10 o'clock event for 500 people on the exact same parameters that I've already reached out to them a week before, then we just relay that information to our client. I think that's one of the values of the service that a DMC provides, is that eyes and ears in the market to let everybody know what's going on.
That's good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Well, panelists, you've done an outstanding job. I can't thank you enough. I'm sitting here with a room full of our planners, and I challenged them to come up with some questions you didn't already answer, and I got a lot of, nope, they've already covered it. So congratulations on an outstanding seminar. I would like to remind you all that Site Midwest USA has an upcoming event Monday, August 15th. At 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock at the Dierks Bentley concert, at 8 p.m. at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. There's more information on our website, but it is going to be a fun Monday for Site Midwest. And panelists, just so you know, anybody who gets a hold of us will be able to get a transcript or a video playback of this. And we will have your information on here, and anybody contacts us, we'll get them in touch with you. Thanks, everyone, for their participation, and we can't thank you enough for you giving up part of your day and part of your week to help Site Midwest with their membership.
It's a pleasure.
So thank you all.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, this is Site Midwest Signing off. We'll see you next month in our seminar with the cruise lines and the airlines. Thank you so much.
Thank you.